Engineer Serko made no response to this observation, which, for that matter, was unanswerable. I continued. Therefore, squadrons sent by the maritime powers who have an interest in breaking up this island would not hesitate to approach and shell it. Now, I argue from this that as this squadron has not yet appeared, it is not likely to come at all, and that nothing is known as to Kerkarad's whereabouts, and you must admit that this hypothesis is the most cheerful one, as far as you are concerned. That may be, Engineer Serko replied, but what is, whether they are aware of the fact or no, if warships approach within 5 or 6 miles of this island, they will be sunk before they have had time to fire a single shot. Well, and what then? What then? Why, the probability is that no others would care to repeat the experiment. That again may be, but these warships would invest you beyond the dangerous zone, and the Ebba would not be able to put into the ports she previously visited with the Count d'Artigas. In this event, how would you be able to provision the island? Engineer Serko remained silent. This argument, which he must already have brooded over, was too logical to be refuted or dismissed, and I have an idea that the pirates contemplate abandoning Back Cup. Nevertheless, not relishing being cornered, he continued. We should still have the tug, and what the Ebba could not do, this would. The tug, I cried. But if Kerkarad's secrets are known, do you suppose the powers are not also aware of the existence of the Count d'Artigas' submarine boat? Engineer Serko looked at me suspiciously. Mr. Hart, he said, you appear to me to carry your deductions rather far. Mr. Serko. Yes, and I think you talk about all this like a man who knows more than he ought to. This remark brought me up abruptly. It was evident that my arguments might give rise to the suspicion that I was not altogether irresponsible for the recent incident. Engineer Serko scrutinized me sharply, as though he would read my innermost thoughts. Mr. Serko, I observed, by profession, as well as by inclination, I am accustomed to reason upon everything. This is why I communicated to you the result of my reasoning, which you can take into consideration or not, as you like. Thereupon we separate, but I fancy my lack of reserve may have excited suspicions which may not be easy to allay. From this interview, however, I gleaned a precious bit of information, namely, that the dangerous zone of Rock's fulgurator is between 5 and 6 miles off. Perhaps, during the next equinoctial tides, another notice to this effect in another keg may also reach a safe destination. But how many weary months to wait before the orifice of the tunnel will again be uncovered? The rough weather continues, and the squalls are more violent than ever. Is it the state of the sea that delays another campaign against Back Cup? Lieutenant Davon certainly assured me that if his expedition failed, if the Sword did not return to St. George, another attempt under different conditions would be made with a view to breaking up this bandits' lair. Sooner or later the work of justice must be done, and Back Cup be destroyed, even though I may not survive its destruction. Ah, why can I not go and breathe, if only for a single instant, the vivifying air outside? Why am I not permitted to cast one glance over the ocean towards the distant horizon of the Bermudas? My whole life is concentrated in one desire, to get through the tunnel in the wall and hide myself among the rocks. Perchance, I might be the first to catch sight of the smoke of a squadron heading for the island. This project, alas, is unrealizable, as sentries are posted day and night at each extremity of the passage. No one can enter it without Engineer Serko's authorization. Were I to attempt it, I should risk being deprived of my liberty to walk about the cavern, and even worse might happen to me. Since our last conversation, Engineer Serko's attitude towards me has undergone a change. His gaze has lost its old-time sarcasm and is distrustful, suspicious, searching, and as stern as Kerkarad's. November 17. This afternoon there was a great commotion in the beehive, and the men rushed out of their cells with loud cries. I was reclining on my bed, but immediately rose and hurried out. All the pirates were making for the passage, in front of which were Kerkarad, Engineer Serko, Captain Spade, Boatswain Effrondat, Engine Driver Gibson, and the Count d'Artigas, big Malay attendant. I soon learned the reason for the tumult, for the sentries rush in with shouts of alarm. Several vessels have been sighted to the northwest, warships steaming at full speed in the direction of Back Cup. Chapter 16. Only a few more hours. What effect this news has upon me, and what emotion it awakens within my soul. The end, I feel, is at hand. May it be such as civilization and humanity are entitled to. Up to the present I have indited my notes day by day. Henceforward it is imperative that I should inscribe them hour by hour, minute by minute. Who knows but what Thomas Rock's last secret may be revealed to me, and that I shall have time to commit it to paper. Should I die during the attack, God grant that the account of the 5 months I have passed in Back Cup may be found upon my body. At first Carcarage, Engineer Serco, Captain Spade, and several of their companions took up position on the exterior base of the island. What would I not give to be able to follow to them, and in the friendly shelter of a rook watch the oncoming warships. An hour later they return after having left a score of men to keep watch. As the days at this season of the year are very short, there is nothing to fear before the morrow. It is not likely that the ships will attempt a night attack and land a storming party, for they must imagine that the place is in a thorough condition of defense. All night long the pirates work, installing the trestles at different points of the coast. 6 have been taken through the passage to places selected in advance. This done, Engineer Serco joins Thomas Rock in his laboratory. Is he going to tell him what is passing, that a squadron is in view of Back Cup, and that his fulgurator will be employed to defend the island? What is certain is that 100 engines, each charged with several pounds of the explosive and of the substance that ensures a trajectory superior to that of any other projectile, are ready for their work of destruction. As to the deflagrator liquid, Thomas Rock has a certain number of phials of it, and I know only too well, will not refuse to help Carcarage's pirates with it. During these preparations night has come on. Only the lamps of the beehive are lighted, and a semi-obscurity reigns in the cavern. I return to my cell. It is to my interest to keep out of the way as much as possible, for Engineer Serco's suspicions might be revived now that the squadron is approaching Back Cup. But will the vessels sighted continue on their course in this direction? May they not be merely passing on their way to Bermuda? For an instant this doubt enters my mind. No, it cannot be. Besides, I have just heard Captain Spade declare that they are lying to in view of the island. To what nation do they belong? Have the English, desirous of avenging the destruction of the sword, alone undertaken the expedition? May not cruisers of other nations be with them? I know not, and it is impossible to ascertain. And what does it matter, after all, so long as this haunt is destroyed, even though I should perish in the ruins like the heroic Lieutenant Davon and his brave crew? Preparations for defense continue with coolness and method under Engineer Serco's superintendence. These pirates are obviously certain that they will be able to annihilate their assailants as soon as the latter enter the dangerous zone. Their confidence in Rock's fulgurator is absolute. Absorbed by the idea that these warships are powerless against them, they think neither of the difficulties nor menaces held out by the future. I surmise that the trestles have been set up on the northwest coast, with the grooves turned to send the engines to the north, west, and south. On the east, as already stated, the island is defended by the chain of reefs that stretches away to the Bermudas. About 9 o'clock I venture out of my cell. They will pay little attention to me, and perhaps I may escape notice in the obscurity. Ah, if I could get through that passage and hide behind some rock, so that I could witness what goes on at daybreak. And why should I not succeed now that Carcarage, Engineer Serco, Captain Spade, and the pirates have taken their posts outside? The shores of the lake are deserted, but the entrance to the passage is kept by Count d'Artigas Malay. I saunter, without any fixed idea, towards Thomas Rock's laboratory. This reminds me of my compatriot. I am, on reflection, disposed to think that he knows nothing about the presence of a squadron off Back Cup. Probably not until the last moment will Engineer Serco apprise him of its proximity, not till he brusquely points out to him the vengeance he can accomplish. Then I conceive the idea of enlightening Thomas Rock, myself, of the responsibility he is incurring, and of revealing to him in this supreme hour the character of the men who want him to cooperate in their criminal projects. Yes, I will attempt it, and may I succeed in fanning into a flame any spark of patriotism that may still linger in his rebellious soul. Rock is shut up in his laboratory. He must be alone, for never does he allow anyone to enter while he is preparing his deflagrator. As I pass the jetty, I notice that the tug is moored in its accustomed place. Here I judge it prudent to walk behind the first row of pillars and approach the laboratory laterally, which will enable me to see whether anybody is with him. When I have gone a short distance along the somber avenue, I see a bright light on the opposite side of the lagoon. It is the electric light in Rock's laboratory, as seen through a narrow window in the front. Except in that particular spot, the southern shore of the lake is in darkness, whereas, in the opposite direction, the beehive is lit up to its extremity at the northern wall. Through the opening in the dome, over the lake I can see the stars shining. The sky is clear, the tempest has abated, and the squalls no longer penetrate to the interior of Back Cup. When near the laboratory, I creep along the wall and peep in at the window. Thomas Rock is there alone. The light shines full on his face. If it is somewhat drawn, and the lines on the forehead are more pronounced, his physiognomy, at least, denotes perfect calmness and self-possession. No, he is no longer the inmate of Pavilion No. 17, the madman of Healthful House, and I ask myself whether he is not radically cured, whether there is no further danger of his reason collapsing in a final paroxysm. He has just laid 2 glass phials upon the table, and holds a third in his hand. He holds it up to the light, and observes the limpidity of the liquid it contains. I have half a mind to rush in, seize the tubes and smash them, but I reflect that he would have time to make some more of the stuff. Better stick to my first plan. I push the door open and enter. "Thomas Rock," I exclaim. He has not heard, nor has he seen me. "Thomas Rock," I repeat. He raises his head, turns and gazes at me. "Ah, it is you, Simon Hart," he replies calmly, even indifferently. He knows my name. Engineer Serco must have informed him that it was Simon Hart, and not Keeper Gaydon who was watching over him at Healthful House. "You know who I am," I say. "Yes, as I know what your object was in undertaking such a position. You lived in hopes of surprising a secret that they would not pay for at its just value." Thomas Rock knows everything, and perhaps it is just as well, in view of what I am going to say. "Well, you did not succeed, Simon Hart, and as far as this is concerned," he added, flourishing the phial, "no one else has succeeded or ever will succeed." As I conjectured, he has not, then, made known the composition of his deflagrator. Looking him straight in the face, I reply, "You know who I am, Thomas Rock, but do you know in whose place you are?" "In my own place," he cries. That is what Kirkcarage has permitted him to believe. The inventor thinks he is at home in Back Cup, that the riches accumulated in this cavern are his, and that if an attack is made upon the place, it will be with the object of stealing what belongs to him, and he will defend it under the impression that he has the right to do so. "Thomas Rock," I continue, "listen to me. What do you want to say to me, Simon Hart? This cavern into which we have been dragged is occupied by a band of pirates, and—" Rock does not give me time to complete the sentence. I doubt even whether he has understood me. I repeat, he interrupts vehemently, that the treasures stored here are the price of my invention. They have paid me what I asked for my fulgurator, what I was everywhere else refused, even in my own country, which is also yours, and I will not allow myself to be despoiled. What can I reply to such insensate assertions? I, however, go on. "Thomas Rock, do you remember Healthful House?" Healthful House, where I was sequestrated after Warder Gaydon had been entrusted with the mission of spying upon me in order to rob me of my secret. I do, indeed. I never dreamed of depriving you of the benefit of your secret, Thomas Rock. I would never have accepted such a mission. But you were ill, your reason was affected, and your invention was too valuable to be lost. Yes, had you disclosed the secret during one of your fits, you would have preserved all the benefit and all the honor of it. Really, Simon Hart, Rock replies disdainfully. Honor and benefit, your assurances come somewhat late in the day. You forget that on the pretext of insanity I was thrown into a dungeon. Yes, it was a pretext, for my reason has never left me, even for an hour, as you can see from what I have accomplished since I am free. Free? Do you imagine you are free, Thomas Rock? Are you not more closely confined within the walls of this cavern than you ever were at Healthful House? A man who is in his own home, he replies angrily, goes out as he likes and when he likes. I have only to say the word and all the doors will open before me. This place is mine. Count d'Artigas gave it to me with everything it contains. Woe to those who attempt to attack it. I have here the wherewithal to annihilate them, Simon Hart. The inventor waves the file feverishly as he speaks. The Count d'Artigas has deceived you, I cry, as he has deceived so many others. Under this name is dissembled one of the most formidable monsters who ever scoured the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. He is a bandit steeped in crime. He is the odious Kercarrage. Kercarrage, echoes Thomas Rock. And I wonder if this name has not impressed him, if he remembers who the man is who bears it. If it did impress him, it was only momentarily. I do not know this Kercarrage, he says, pointing towards the door to order me out. I only know the Count d'Artigas. Thomas Rock, I persist, in a final effort. The Count d'Artigas and Kercarrage are one and the same person. If this man has purchased your secret, it is with the intention of ensuring impunity for his crimes and facilities for committing fresh ones. He is the chief of these pirates. Pirates, cries Rock, whose irritation increases the more I press him. The real pirates are those who dare to menace me even in this retreat, who tried it on with the sword, for Serko has told me everything, who sought to steal in my own home what belongs to me, what is but the just price of my discovery. No, Thomas Rock, the pirates are those who have imprisoned you in this cavern of Back Cup, who will utilize your genius to defend it, and who will get rid of you when they are in entire possession of your secrets. Thomas Rock here interrupts me. He does not appear to listen to what I say. He has a fixed idea, that of vengeance, which has been skillfully worked upon by engineer Serko, and in which his hatred is concentrated to the exclusion of everything else. The bandits, he hisses, are those who spurned me without a hearing, who heaped injustice and ignominy upon me, who drove me from country to country, whereas I offered them superiority, invincibleness, omnipotence. It is the eternal story of the unappreciated inventor, to whom the indifferent or envious refuse the means of testing his inventions, to pay him the value he sets upon them. I know it well, and also know all the exaggeration that has been written upon this subject. It is clearly no time for reasoning with Thomas Rock. My arguments are entirely lost upon the hapless dupe of Kercarrage and his accomplices in revealing to him the real name of the Count d'Artigas, and denouncing to him this band and their chief. I had hoped to wean him from their influence and make him realize the criminal end they have in view. My hope was vain. He does not believe me. And then what does he care whether the brigand's name is Count d'Artigas or Kercarrage? Is not he, Thomas Rock, master of Back Cup? Is he not the owner of these riches accumulated by 20 years of murder and rapine? Disarmed before such moral degeneracy, knowing not how I can touch his ulcerated, irresponsible heart, I turn towards the door. It only remains for me to withdraw. What is to be, will be, since it is out of my power to prevent the frightful denouement that will occur in a few hours. Thomas Rock takes no more notice of me. He seems to have forgotten that I am here. He has resumed his manipulations, without realizing that he is not alone. There is only one means of preventing the imminent catastrophe. Throw myself upon Rock, place him beyond the power of doing harm, strike him, kill him. Yes, kill him. It is my right, it is my duty. I have no arms, but on a nearby shelf I see some tools, a chisel and a hammer. What is to prevent me from knocking his brains out? Once he is dead I have but to smash the files and his invention dies with him. The warships can approach, land their men upon the island, demolish Back Cup with their shells. Kercarrage and his band will be killed to a man. Can I hesitate at a murder that will bring about the chastisement of so many crimes? I advance to the shelf, and stretch forth my hand to seize the chisel. As I do so, Thomas Rock turns round. It is too late to strike. A struggle would ensue. The noise and his cries would be heard, for there are still some pirates not far off. I can even now hear someone approaching, and have only just time to fly if I would not be seen. Nevertheless, I make one last attempt to awaken the sentiment of patriotism within him. Thomas Rock, I say, warships are in sight. They have come to destroy this lair. Maybe one of them flies the French flag. He gazes at me. He was not aware that Back Cup is going to be attacked, and I have just apprised him of the fact. His brow darkens and his eyes flash. Thomas Rock, would you dare to fire upon your country's flag, the tricolor flag? He raises his head, shakes it nervously and with a disdainful gesture. What do you mean by your country? I no longer have any country, Simon Hart. The inventor spurned no longer has a country. Where he finds an asylum, there is his fatherland. They seek to take what is mine. I will defend it, and woe, woe to those who dare to attack me. Then rushing to the door of the laboratory, and throwing it violently open, he shouts so loudly that he must be heard at the beehive. Go, get you gone. I have not a second to lose, and I dash out. Chapter 17. 1 against 5. For a whole hour I wander about among Back Cup's dark vaults, amid the stone trees, to the extreme limit of the cavern. It is here that I have so often sought an issue, a crevice, a crack through which I might squeeze to the shore of the island. My search has been futile. In my present condition, a prey to indefinable hallucinations, it seems to me that these walls are thicker than ever, that they are gradually closing in upon and will crush me. How long this mental trouble lasts I cannot say, but I afterwards find myself on the beehive side, opposite the cell in which I cannot hope for either repose or sleep. Sleep, when my brain is in a whirl of excitement. Sleep, when I am near the end of a situation that threatened to be prolonged for years and years. What will the end be as far as I am personally concerned? What am I to expect from the attack upon Back Cup, the success of which I have been unable to assure by placing Thomas Rock beyond the possibility of doing harm? His engines are ready to be launched, and as soon as the vessels have reached the dangerous zone, they will be blown to atoms. However this may be, I am condemned to pass the remaining hours of the night in my cell. The time has come for me to go in. At daybreak I shall see what is best for me to do. Meanwhile, for aught I know, I may hear the thunder of Rock's fulgurator as it destroys the ships approaching to make a night attack. I take a last look round. On the opposite side a single light, is burning. It is the lamp in Rock's laboratory, and it casts its reflection upon the waters of the lake. No one is about, and it occurs to me that the pirates must have taken up their lighting positions outside, and that the beehive is empty. Then, impelled by an irresistible instinct, instead of returning to my cell, I creep along the wall, listening, spying, ready to hide if I hear voices or footsteps. I at length reach the passage. God in heaven, no one is on guard there, the passage is free. Without giving myself time to reflect, I dart into the dark hole and grope my way along it. Soon I feel a fresher air, the salt, vivifying air of the sea that I have not breathed for 5 months. I inspire it with avidity, with all the power of my lungs. The outer extremity of the passage appears against the star-studded sky. There is not even a shadow in the way. Perhaps I shall be able to get outside. I lay down and crawl along noiselessly to the orifice and peer out. Not a soul is in sight. By skirting the rocks towards the east, to the side which cannot be approached from the sea on account of the reefs, and which is not likely to be watched, I reach a narrow excavation about 225 yards from where the point of the coast extends towards the northwest. At last I am out of the cavern. I am not free, but it is the beginning of freedom. On the point, the forms of a few sentries stand out against the clear sky, so motionless that they might be mistaken for pieces of the rock. On the horizon to the west, the position lights of the warship show in a luminous line. From a few gray patches discernible in the east, I calculate that it must be about 5 o'clock in the morning. November 18. It is now light enough for me to be able to complete my notes relating the details of my visit to Thomas Rock's laboratory. The last lines my hand will trace, perhaps. I have begun to write, and shall dot down the incidents of the attack as they occur. The light damp mist that hangs over the water soon lifts under the influence of the breeze, and at last I can distinguish the warships. There are 5 of them, and they are lying in a line about 6 miles off, and consequently beyond the range of Rock's engines. My fear that after passing in sight of the Bermudas, the squadron would continue on its way to the Antilles or Mexico was therefore unfounded. No, there it is, awaiting broad daylight in order to attack Back Cup. There is a movement on the coast. 3 or 4 pirates emerge from the rocks, the sentries are recalled and draw in, and the entire band is soon assembled. They do not seek shelter inside the cavern, knowing full well that the ships can never get near enough for the shells of the big guns to reach the island. I run no risk of being discovered, for only my head protrudes above the hole in the rock, and no one is likely to come this way. The only thing that worries me is that Serko, or somebody else, may take it into his head to see if I am in my cell, and if necessary to lock me in, though what they have to fear from me I cannot conceive. At 25 minutes past 7, Carriage, Engineer Serko and Captain Spade advance to the extremity of the point, where they sweep the northwestern horizon with their telescopes. Behind them, the 6 trestles are installed, in the grooves of which are Rock's autopropulsive engines. 35 minutes past 7. Smoke arises from the stacks of the warships, which are getting underway and will soon be within range of the engines. Horrible cries of joy, salvos of hurrahs, howls of wild beasts, I might more appropriately say, arise from the pirate horde. At this moment Engineer Serko quits Carriage, whom he leaves with Captain Spade, and enters the cavern, no doubt to fetch Thomas Rock. When Carriage orders the latter to launch his engines against the ships, will he remember what I told him? Will not his crime appear to him in all its horror? Will he refuse to obey? No, I am only too convinced of the contrary. It is useless to entertain any illusion on the subject. The inventor believes he is on his own property. They are going to attack it. He will defend it. The 5 warships slowly advance, making for the point. Perhaps they imagine on board that Thomas Rock has not given up his last and greatest secret to the pirates, and as a matter of fact, he had not done so when I threw the keg into the lagoon. If the commanders propose to land storming parties and the ships advance into the zone of danger, there will soon be nothing left of them but bits of shapeless floating wreckage. Here comes Thomas Rock, accompanied by Engineer Serko. On issuing from the passage, both go to the trestle that is pointing towards the leading warship. Carriage and Captain Spade are awaiting them. As far as I am able to judge, Rock is calm. He knows what he is going to do. No hesitation troubles the soul of the hapless man whom hatred has led astray. Between his fingers shines the glass phial containing the deflagrator liquid. He then gazes towards the nearest ship, which is about 5 miles distant. She is a cruiser of about 2,500 tons, not more. She flies no flag, but from her build I take her to belong to a nation for which no Frenchman can entertain any particular regard. The 4 other warships remain behind. It is this cruiser which is to begin the attack. Let her use her guns, then, since the pirates allow her to approach, and may the first of her projectiles strike Thomas Rock. While Engineer Serko is estimating the distance, Rock places himself behind the trestle. 3 engines are resting on it, charged with the explosive, and which are assured a long trajectory by the fusing matter without it being necessary to impart a gyratory movement to them, as in the case of inventor Turpin's gyroscopic projectiles. Besides, if they drop within a few hundred yards of the vessel, they will be quite near enough to utterly destroy it. The time has come. Thomas Rock, Engineer Serko cries and points to the cruiser. The latter is steaming slowly towards the northwestern point of the island and is between 4 and 5 miles off. Rock nods assent and waves them back from the trestle. Carriage, Captain Spade and the others draw back about 50 paces. Thomas Rock then takes the stopper from the phial which he holds in his right hand, and successively pours into a hole in the rear end of each engine a few drops of the liquid, which mixes with the fusing matter. 45 seconds elapse, the time necessary for the combination to be effected, 45 seconds, during which it seems to me that my heart ceases to beat. A frightful whistling is then heard, and the 3 engines tear through the air, describing a prolonged curve at a height of 300 feet, and pass the cruiser. Have they missed it? Is the danger over? No, the engines, after the manner of artillery Captain Chappell's discoid projectile, return towards the doomed vessel like an Australian boomerang. The next instant the air is shaken with a violence comparable to that which would be caused by the explosion of a magazine of melinite or dynamite. Back Cup Island trembles to its very foundations. The cruiser has disappeared, blown to pieces. The effect is that of the Zielinski shell, but centupled by the infinite power of Rock's fulgurator. What shouts the bandits raise as they rush towards the extremity of the point! Carriage, Engineer Serko, and Captain Spade remain rooted to the spot, hardly able to credit the evidence of their own eyes. As to Thomas Rock, he stands with folded arms and flashing eyes, his face radiant with pride and triumph. I understand, while I abhor his feelings. If the other warships approach, they will share the same fate as the cruiser. They will inevitably be destroyed. Oh, if they would but give up the struggle and withdraw to safety, even though my last hope would go with them. The nations can consult and arrive at some other plan for destroying the island. They can surround the place with a belt of ships that the pirates cannot break through and starve them to death like so many rats in a hole. But I know that the warships will not retire, even though they know they are going to certain death. One after the other, they will all make the attempt. And I am right. Signals are exchanged between them. Almost immediately clouds of black smoke arise and the vessels again advance. One of them, under forced draft, distances the others in her anxiety to bring her big guns quickly into action. At all risks I issue from my hole, and gaze at the oncoming warship with feverish eyes, awaiting, without being able to prevent it, another catastrophe. This vessel, which visibly grows larger as it comes nearer, is a cruiser of about the same tonnage as the one that preceded her. No flag is flying, and I cannot guess her nationality. She continues steaming at full speed in an effort to pass the zone of danger before other engines can be launched. But how can she escape them since they will swoop back upon her? Thomas Rock places himself behind the second trestle, as the cruiser passes on to the surface of the abysm, in which she will in turn soon be swallowed up. No sound disturbs the stillness. Suddenly the rolling of drums and the blare of bugles is heard on board the warship. I know those bugle calls. They are French bugles. Great God! She is one of the ships of my own country's navy, and a French inventor is about to destroy her. No, it shall not be. I will rush towards Thomas Rock, shout to him that she is a French ship. He cannot know it. At a sign from Engineer Serko, the inventor has raised the file. The bugles sound louder and more strident. It is the salute to the flag. A flag unfurls to the breeze, the tricolor, whose blue, white, and red sections stand out luminously against the sky. Ah, what is this? I understand. Thomas Rock is fascinated at the sight of his national emblem. Slowly he lowers his arm as the flag flutters up to the masthead, then he draws back and covers his eyes with his hand. Heavens above! All sentiment of patriotism is not then dead in his ulcerated heart, seeing that it beats at the sight of his country's flag. My emotion is not less than his. At the risk of being seen, and what do I now care if I am seen? I creep over the rocks. I will be there to sustain Thomas Rock and prevent him from weakening. If I pay for it with my life, I will once more adjure him in the name of his country. I will cry to him. Frenchman, it is the tricolor that flies on yonder ship. Frenchman, it is a very part of France that is approaching you. Frenchman, would you be so criminal as to strike it? But my intervention will not be necessary. Thomas Rock is not a prey to one of the fits to which he was formerly subject. He is perfectly sane. When he found himself facing the flag, he understood, and drew back. A few pirates approach to lead him to the trestle again. He struggles and pushes them from him. Kercarrage and Engineer Serko run up. They point to the rapidly advancing ship. They order him to launch his engines. Thomas Rock refuses. Captain Spade and the others, mad with rage, menace him, curse him, strike him, try to wrest the file from him. Rock throws it on the ground and crushes it underfoot. Then panic seizes upon the crowd of wretches. The cruiser has passed the zone, and they cannot return her fire. Shells begin to rain all over the island, bursting the rocks in every direction. But where is Thomas Rock? Has he been killed by one of the projectiles? No, I see him for the last time as he dashes into the passage. Kercarrage, Engineer Serko, and the others follow him to seek shelter inside of Back Cup. I will not return to the cavern at any price, even if I get killed by staying where I am. I will jot down my final notes, and when the French sailors land on the point, I will go. End of Engineer Simon Hart's notes. Chapter 18. On board the Tonnant. After the failure of Lieutenant Davon's mission with the sword, the English authorities waited in vain for the expedition to return, and the conviction at length gained ground that the bold sailors had perished. but whether the sword had been lost by striking against a rock or had been destroyed by Kerkarage's pirates could not, of course, be ascertained. The object of the expedition, based upon the indications of the document found in the keg that was thrown up on the shore at St. George, was to carry off Thomas Rock ere his engines were completed. The French inventor having been recovered, without forgetting engineer Simon Hart, he was to be handed over to the care of the Bermudan authorities. That done, there would be nothing to fear from his fulgurator when the island was attacked. When, however, the sword had been given up for lost, another expedition of a different kind was decided upon. The time that had elapsed, nearly 8 weeks from the date of the document found in the keg, had to be taken into consideration. It was thought that during the interval, Kerkarage might have gained possession of Rock's secrets. An entente concluded between the maritime powers resulted in the sending of 5 warships to Bermudan waters. As there was a vast cavern inside Back Cup Mountain, it was decided to attempt to bring the latter down like the walls of a bastion, by bombarding it with powerful modern artillery. The squadron assembled at the entrance to the Chesapeake, in Virginia, and sailed for the archipelago, which was sighted on the evening of November 17. The next morning the vessel selected for the first attack steamed forward. It was about 4.5 miles from the island when 3 engines, after passing the vessel, swerved round and exploded about 60 yards from her. She sank immediately. The effect of the explosion, which was superior to any previously obtained by new explosives, was instantaneous. Even at the distance they were from the spot where it occurred, the 4 remaining ships felt the shock severely. 2 things were to be deduced from this sudden catastrophe. 1. The pirate Kerkarage was in possession of Rock's fulgurator. 2. The new engine possessed the destructive power attributed to it by its inventor. After the disappearance of the unfortunate cruiser, the other vessels lowered boats to pick up a few survivors who were clinging to the floating wreckage. Then it was that the signals were exchanged and the warships started towards the island. The swiftest of them, the Tonnant, a French cruiser, forged ahead while the others forced their draft in an effort to catch up with her. The Tonnant, at the risk of being blown to pieces in turn, penetrated the danger zone half a mile, and then ran up her flag while maneuvering to bring her heavy guns into action. From the bridge, the officers could see Kerkarage's band scattered on the rocks of the island. The occasion was an excellent one for getting a shot at them before the bombardment of their retreat was begun, and fire was opened with the result that the pirates made a rush to get into the cavern. A few minutes later, there was a shock terrific enough to shake the sky down. Where the mountain had been, naught but a heap of smoking, crumbling rocks was to be seen. Back Cup had become a group of jagged reefs against which the sea, that had been thrown back like a gigantic tidal wave, was beating and frothing. What was the cause of the explosion? Had it been voluntarily caused by the pirates when they realized that escape was impossible? The Tonnant had not been seriously damaged by the flying rocks. Her boats were lowered and made towards all that was left of Back Cup. The landing parties explored the ruins and found a few horribly mangled corpses. Not a vestige of the cavern was to be seen. One body and one only was found intact. It was lying on the northeast side of the reefs. In one hand, tightly clasped, was a notebook, the last line of which was incomplete. A close examination showed that the man was still breathing. He was conveyed on board the Tonnant, where it was learned from the notebook that he was Simon Hart. For some time his life was despaired of, but he was eventually brought round, and from the answers made to the questions addressed to him, the following conclusion was reached. Moved to his very soul at the sight of the tricolor flag, being at last conscious of the crime of lese patrie he was about to commit, Thomas Rock rushed through the passage to the magazine where a considerable quantity of his explosive was stored. Then, before he could be prevented, brought about the terrible explosion which destroyed the island of Back Cup. And now Kerkarage and his pirates have disappeared, and with them Thomas Rock and the secret of his invention. The end. End of the voyage extraordinaire.